that note, some more breaking news that's coming in this minute. We are now learning that China is all set to shield Masood Azhar yet again, and it has hinted at blocking the United Nations ban on Jaish head once again. So China back to playing its dirty games yet again. Now, let me quickly bring in our Assistant Editor for Defense, Ashish Singh, into the broadcast. Ashish, just take us through. Now, this is yet another attempt by China where China is trying to block India's move, essentially, on JEM chief Masood Azhar.
Well, that's right. Once again, China making its position official. We just learned from the Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesperson, Mr. Geng Shuang. He was answering a lot of questions of the international media just a couple of hours before in Beijing, and replying to a question on Azhar Masood's ban. What the Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesperson informed the journalists there in Beijing, that the Chinese position remains exactly what it was. In fact, I quote him that we have talked about our position several times, and there are various countries which have a lot of problems in listing the matter. This is what the Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesperson has mentioned, clearly indicating that China's position as far as to continue hold the ban, the technical hold on the United Nations list of terrorists in which the Azhar Masood was. He's someone who's the Indian and the US government have been wanting to include in the list of terrorists, but China's technical hold in on this particular move by the United States and India has been creating problem. Remember, Masood Azhar is someone who is the primary accused in Pathankot terror attack, in the Kandahar hijack, and various other terror plots that have been executed by the Pak-sponsored terror organization group Jaish-e-Mohammed. He is the head of Jaish-e-Mohammed and has actively
Well, that's right. Ashish, just request you to hold on to your thoughts for a bit, because we are now joined on the broadcast by senior journalist Pramit Pal Chaudhary, who's been tracking the developments very, very closely. Mr. Chaudhary, how do you view this move on the part of China, and that China now once again back to playing its old tricks, trying to block India's move as far as the UN is concerned, and Jaish-e-Mohammed chief Masood Azhar?
Not at all surprised. China has been consistent on this policy. It has in the past few years, China has become unusually close to Pakistan and upholding Pakistan's interest in multilateral fora. I mean, it has obviously always had a very close relationship with Pakistan, but now on issues like Kashmir, terrorism, and so on, where before it was at least maintained its relatively neutral position regarding India and Pakistan, it is now completely inside Pakistan's quarter. So I'm not at all surprised that has been a consistent policy regarding China and Pakistan relations, but especially in the past 3 years, we have seen an extraordinary degree of alignment between Beijing and Islamabad.
But Mr. Chaudhary, this statement which is coming from the Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesperson Geng Shuang, it comes in response to a question on the Azhar issue ahead of its review by about 1,267 committee of the United Nations next month. So is the timing something that we need to take note of?
Well, we need to take note of it only in the sense that China is signaling very clearly that it's not going to be changing its position, no matter how many votes or number of other countries may join with India. It's important to note that with the Trump administration, from what Indian diplomats have told me, the Americans have been unusually active in trying to get Masood Azhar on the terrorism watch list. And we have had extremely strong support from the Americans on this issue in the past year and a half. So I think one of the things that we're going to be, what China may be also be signaling is not just to New Delhi, but to Washington, that we don't care. We're not budging on this position, no matter what the US and India may do together on this front.
But also, you know, last month, Beijing also put a technical hold to a move in the UN by the US and other countries to declare Azhar a terrorist for his role in the Pathankot terror attack as well. So, in a way, the China allying completely with Pakistan on this front, because Pakistan continues to live in denial, and now we see that once again, China giving out a message loud and clear that it's going to block India's bid.
Yes, and I think what is particularly hypocritical about China on this issue, of course, is that China faces its own Islamic terror problem in places like Uyghur, with the Uyghur population in Xinjiang. And China has been insistent that countries like India join it in denouncing and ensuring that there is no cover provided to the Xinjiang Islamic terrorist movements. But when it comes to Pakistan, it takes a completely different point of view. And it's an area that I think India will have to keep looking to see whether or not there is a pressure point that we can use against Pakistan, against China on this front. But I think one of the key areas that we may need to start looking at is saying that if this is your position, then we cannot continue to maintain a position of hostility towards the Islamic problem in Xinjiang.
Well, that's right. But also, how do you interpret this statement that has come in from the Chinese Foreign Ministry, Mr. Chaudhary, where they've gone on record to say that, and I quote, "At present, some members have disagreement over the listing matter, and China stands ready to remain in coordination and communication with the relevant parties on this issue."
Well, I think China doesn't want to be looking like it is a supporter, ultimately, of Masood Azhar, who is a terrorist of an organization that has carried out attacks against Chinese as well. You may remember that late last year, a retired Chinese diplomat, Mao Wei, wrote a blog where he said, basically saying, "I'm not certain that my government is doing the right thing because we know that Chinese were killed. Chinese citizens are killed in Pakistan by terrorist groups who Masood Azhar has been affiliated with." So the Chinese are wary about this, so they always have to couch this in a diplomatic position. But their fundamental view is that Pakistan offers more in cooperation with them to fight their problem of terrorism than any of the other countries in the world. So they've maintained this stance of supporting Pakistan, regardless of what the situation or circumstances they point to.
So we'll have to keep a close eye on the developments there as China makes a fresh attempt to block India's stand vis-a-vis Masood Azhar. Thank you so much for joining us with your inputs, Mr. Chaudhary. But let me quickly bring in my colleague Ashish Singh once again into the broadcast. Ashish, just take us through now, what are the real-time implications as far as this move by China is concerned? How is it going to impact India vis-a-vis Masood Azhar?
See, the review on Masood Azhar's case by the United Nations Committee 1267 is due next month, somewhere in mid-July, when I'm told that the United Nations Committee would review the entire proposal by the United States and India to put Masood Azhar, the Jaish-e-Mohammed chief, in the terrorist list of the United Nations. But in this particular hold, the technical hold that has been proposed by China last year, it continues. And until China continues to create blockade, despite having US and the other superpowers on board, Indian government will not be able to get through easily as far as the terrorists, including Masood Azhar's name in the terrorist list of United Nations are concerned. So until China comes on board and with the Indian and US government, the position would continue to remain extremely difficult for India in this particular case at the United Nations level.
Well, that's right. So there we see that China playing its old tricks once again and clearly trying to shield Azhar, Masood Azhar once again. What happens next, we'll have to keep a close eye on. Thank you so much, Ashish, for getting us your insight on this story. But